Hi there, welcome to another King's Daily, and we are coming towards the end now of the book of Psalms. We've been working our way through Psalm 143 today, Psalm of David. I really love this psalm. I don't know what it is about it, but it really just helps me anyway to pray, and helps me to know what to do sometimes when you're feeling in a place like maybe you feel like you can't pray, you don't know how to pray. And David's not in a great place at the beginning of this psalm as he expresses that in verse 3 and 4, but we'll get there in a minute. Let's just read it through a couple of verses at a time, and hopefully this will encourage you as it encourages me. Verse 1 says this: "Hear my prayer, O Lord, give ear to my supplications. Answer me in your faithfulness and in your righteousness, and do not enter into judgment with your servant, for in your sight no one living is righteous." David starts by crying out to God, hear me, answer me, listen to me, and it's not based on David and his own performance or self-righteousness or his own works. He says no one is righteous before you. He recognizes that his confidence before God isn't based on what he is like and what he has done, but upon who God is. He says, in your faithfulness, in your righteousness. He recognizes that he only stands before God based on sheer grace and mercy from God to us. And New Testament, Hebrews, talks about that. Approach the throne of grace with confidence to find help in your time of need, to find grace, to find mercy. And we only approach with confidence because of his righteousness and faithfulness of what he's done in Jesus for us. And then verse 3 and 4 he goes on, "For the enemy has persecuted my soul. He's crushed my life to the ground. He's made me dwell in dark places like those who have long been dead. Therefore my spirit is overwhelmed within me. My heart is appalled within me." That word appalled there can mean your heart being in distress, in dismay, trembling. He says, I feel crushed, I feel overwhelmed. You've made me dwell I'm in a dark place, maybe being pursued by Saul, this king, and he's hiding in caves, in dark places. His surroundings are not good. He feels closed in. And again, we can feel like that sometimes, can't we, when things happen in life, situations, whatever it might be, but we can feel pressed in, hemmed in like we're in a dark place. We can easily feel overwhelmed with the things that we might be facing in life. But the path out of this isn't to focus on those dark places. It's not to focus on the surroundings. It's not to focus on the circumstances, where the enemy's pressing in. And he says here in verse 5, I remember the days of old. This is starting to get the path out of that dark place. I remember the days of old. I remember, maybe he's looking back at the way that God had delivered the people of God out from Egypt, out from slavery, or other stories that he knows, or his own personal experience and the way that God has worked in his own life. I remember these things. He calls them to mind. I meditate, he says, on all your doings. I love that word. He means to chew on something, to chunter, to study, to ponder, to chew it over, as it were. Meditate on these things. And then that tips into this next word where he says, I muse on the work of your hands. This word muse on means to be absorbed in thought on something, to gaze at, and that can lead to praise and to thanksgiving as well. I'm absorbed by thought about who you are, God, and what you've done, on your works, on your doings, on what you've done, and what's the ultimate work of Jesus, of God? It's Christ, it's Jesus on the cross and his resurrection. That's a great place to start pondering, chewing, meditating on who Jesus is and what Jesus has done. We go to the cross and we see Jesus in a dark place there, and yet we see the resurrection, and it breathes incredible hope into our lives as we start to meditate and chew and muse on these things, muse on Jesus. And then we've got this word Selah, which means pause. Again, just pause. Spend time in the gospel. Spend time reading about Jesus, meditating on who he is, what he's like, what he's done. It starts to feed our soul, and it will start to bring us out of the caves, out of the dark places we might find ourselves in. And then we come to verse 7 to 12. And he says, answer me quickly, O Lord. My spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me, or I'll become like those who go down to the pit. Let me hear your loving kindness in the morning, for I trust in you. Teach me the way in which I should walk, for to you I lift up my soul. Deliver me, Lord, from my enemies. I take refuge in you. And then it goes on, verse 10 and 11. Teach me and lead me and revive me. These are, if we're ever stuck to know what to pray, I find it helpful coming into the Psalms and then you're reading these words. It gives me direction. Things like, I need you. Verse 6, go back to that. My soul longs for you as a parched land. I stretch out my hands. David's praying to God, don't hide your face from me. He prizes the presence of God with him. God with us. And that's Jesus' promise to us. And he's thirsty for that. And that's a great way to pray. Lord, I'm just thirsty. I feel dry. I just need you. I prize your presence. I stretch out my hands to you. There's a sense of expression of his need of God in doing that. And then teach me to do your will. Teach me to walk in your ways. A disciple of Jesus is someone who is always learning in following Jesus. And there's a sense of humility here with David. Teach me your ways. Teach me how to walk in this. We're looking to Jesus to shape our walk and our words and our ways that we go in today. And then another prayer here, lead me on level ground. There's a sense of from rocky grounds and rocky places you can trip up and be harmed on, I guess, and to level ground, to fertile plains. And this makes me think of Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. He will lead me, he'll guide me, he'll shepherd me through every season, even through the dark valleys. God will bring us through those things. And so I need you. Teach me, lead me, revive me. Where I'm feeling a bit dead and just like David says, I'm like a dead man in these places. It's bring me to life. And again, as we meditate on who Jesus is, as we muse on that, as we ponder on his words, as we allow them to take root in our lives, Jesus said that we don't live on bread alone, but from every word that comes out of the mouth of God. And we feed on God, on his word, on what Jesus has said. And Jesus said, the words I've spoken to you, those words are spirit and they're life. And so we find we get revived as we start to feed off who Jesus is and what he says. And then he says, deliver me, bring me out of trouble, cut off my enemies. It's kind of echoes of the Lord's Prayer, the way that Jesus taught his disciples and us to pray. He said, deliver us from evil. And this is David's prayer here, and we can thank God that's exactly what happened on the cross. And just to end on verse 8, go back to that, because I love this. Let me hear, this is a great way, this is a great prayer to pray each day, each morning when we wake up. Let me hear of your loving kindness in the morning, for I trust in you. They're great words, and it's a great way to start each day.